Before our second son was born, we had agreed on naming him Red, as long as he wasn't born with red hair. We were thrilled and relieved when he came out with a full head of white hair and beautiful blue eyes. At the time, we should have realized there was something extra special with him when nurses who were not our nurses were coming in to see the baby with the white hair. My husband and I were both so happy to show him off. We had both been born with blonde hair, as was my oldest son Gage, so seeing our second son with such blonde hair didn't strike us as unusual. The first month we had him home, I remember three things as being very unique. The first was his hair. It was so white that it would sparkle in the sunlight. I pointed it out to my mother-in-law, who just stared in awe and said, "He's like a special little fairy." Second was the way his eyes were always looking up and tracking back and forth in constant motion. I would try and block his view with my hands to see if he would divert his eyes down, but nothing ever worked. I would crack jokes saying that maybe he was seeing ghosts flying back and forth on our ceiling. And my husband always said it looked like he was watching a tennis match. Third was how his blue eyes would sometimes flash red when he was in certain light. This was by far the strangest occurrence, but with all of these things, I figured it was because he was a newborn and that he would eventually grow out of them. When Red was almost 2 months old, my husband and I were eating breakfast, and I asked him to Google tracking of the eyes in newborns. The first thing he read was that it was a common trait in infants with albinism. At the time, I had never heard the word albinism and asked what it meant. I remember him looking at Red and saying, "White hair, pale skin, tracking of the eyes. He's an albino." My immediate response was, "No, he's not. Don't they have red eyes?" We then spent the next few hours watching YouTube videos on albinism and reading articles to gain a better understanding of what it was. Still in disbelief, I called to make an appointment with our pediatrician. We realized that his first few appointments he had refused to open his eyes, which makes sense because his eyes are extremely sensitive to light. So she had never seen his eyes tracking back and forth. She immediately scheduled us to meet with a genetic specialist and an optometrist. When we met with the genetic specialist, he walked in and took one look at Red and said right away he most likely has 1 October 1st oculocutaneous albinism type 1. He told us there are many various forms of albinism, but that 1 October 1st is the most common, in which the body produces little to no pigment in skin, hair, and eyes. He said that white eyelashes and white eyebrows are the easiest way to tell the difference between someone with albinism and someone who is blonde. Being clueless as to how ignorant I sounded, I decided to ask, "But aren't they supposed to have red eyes?" The genetic specialist laughed and said that the only things he knew of with red eyes were rats. The baby Bence mesmerized everyone around him with his snow-white hair. Although there's no medical explanation for his condition, doctors believe that he would develop the pigment in his hair as his age will progress. Another such case surfaced on internet when a baby was born in 2016 with a streak of white hair, but her unusual hair color was attributed to genetics. Sometimes, babies look remarkably different at the time of their birth. Some have a head full of hair while some are completely bald. There's no cause of alarm. There are other anomalies as well. Some babies are born with complete set of teeth, although it's rare.